Okay, hi and welcome to Anthropology 107, which is the anthropology of magic, witchcraft, and religion. I present this video here in week one of the class to give you maybe some perspective about what to expect, and I'm specifically focusing on four areas here that I think might be useful to consider as we talk about the anthropology of magic, witchcraft, and religion. This is a class that is pretty unique in anthropology. If you've taken other social science classes, you may have gotten into some of the topical areas of, say, religion and spirituality, but likely haven't considered these issues in the level of depth that we'll be talking about them here in Anthropology 107. I actually call these the four C's, and each of these words starts with a C. So I'm suggesting to you four opportunities to reflect on religion as we move into the first few weeks of the class. The first of these is complexity. And what I intend by this is to suggest to you that as you consider opportunities to reflect on the anthropology of magic, witchcraft, and religion in Anthro 107 this quarter, you think about how any religious behavior out there, whether it's from a traditional religion, a less traditional so-called New Age religion, a historic religion, a more contemporary one, an indigenous one, or a more institutionalized one like Catholicism, that you consider religion in the most complex ways possible. And as an example of this, I'll show you later in the quarter this film that was a part of a documentary film called The Nature of Existence, directed by Roger Nygard. And in this feature film, which also included a companion set of additional discs, Roger interviews scholars, religious practitioners from all over the world, from just about every continent throughout the United States, India, China, and really asks people a series of 50 or so questions about reality, cosmology, religion, and existence. And what I discovered being a part of that documentary project and also watching the film and the companion materials is that there is no one definition or one understanding of religion or spirituality anywhere, even probably in a small community, even in a particular region of the country or place where you might happen to live at this very moment in time. So as a result of this, we have to be very careful when we study religion that we don't bring our own biases into play, that we don't assume that our experiences with religion, whatever those are the experiences of others out there in the world. The next of these is the issue of contradiction. And I think contradiction is a key one here because we realize that so many people do not agree on religion and spirituality. And I should say at the beginning of this class, whether you are an atheist, whether you are a fundamentalist Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Hindu, whether you're non-practicing, whether you're Wiccan, or whatever religion or spiritual belief out there, you don't have to use that or you don't have to allow that to stifle your experiences or understandings in the class. While you should bring your own spiritual religious beliefs, whatever those are or are not, to this class, they don't have to be your only lens or filter of understanding as you think about religion. Religion is often full of intense contradictions, and one example of this recently in 2018, Pope Francis, who I think was a very interesting and progressive pontiff, recently was quoted in some journalistic accounts of saying some things about the existence of hell, or rather the non-existence of hell. And the funny thing about this is it was reported by a particular reporter who is somewhat known for taking the pontiff out of context in interviews. Pushed him a little bit, and then what came out wasn't exactly, I think, what Pope Francis was intending. I mention this because very often, even the reporting, the media accounts that we hear, the interviews that we hear about of, in this case, religion and the Pope, often are full of their own contradictions. In 2017, 2018, if you follow American presidential politics, you're very aware of the fact that Russia has been accused of tampering in the U.S. presidential election. It's led many to believe that we can't even grasp what the media is saying. We're not entirely sure if the media is telling the truth and so forth. So we have to be very critical in the conversations that we have about religion. So as you seek out information in this class, be critical of it, challenge the authority of what's being written or what's being said, if it's a media account of religion or if it's the textbook that we're reading or some online article. challenge that, be very critical of it, and be aware that there are numerous contradictions when it comes to the case of religion in the world around us. Now, the next issue is the issue of controversy. And controversy simply suggests that religion is a topic of high controversy, of much debate. I think it's one of those topics that often we shy away from not discussing, or we shy away from discussing because basically we're worried that we might be offended or someone else might be offended in the conversations we might have about religion. I don't think we can ever quell or squash or do away with this controversy, but hopefully we can bring our own understandings and tolerance and critical thinking and insights to the conversations that we have about religion, such that we're better adept or able to understand what someone else is saying in terms of their religious or spiritual beliefs, and hopefully we can engage them in a conversation such that they understand where we're coming from depending on what our beliefs happen to be. An example of this recently, it comes from the world of social media. I've been doing some research for some time, and I'll share this with you later in the quarter, on the group called Answers in Genesis, which is an apologetics ministry run by Ken Ham, who's Australian, but who has recently taken up shop in the United States and has opened both the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter in northern Kentucky. And again, I'll share some of that research with you later in the quarter, some articles I've written on those two venues, and also some videos. I do pretty extensive cataloging of those sites on my YouTube page. But I had an interesting, I happen to subscribe to Ken Ham's Facebook feed. And I have to say I don't personally agree with the things Ken Ham says. But as an anthropologist, I sometimes have to suspend my disbelief in order to try to put myself in his perspective, his shoes, or someone who follows this group, Answers in Genesis, AIG, and take on what's called the emic approach in anthropology. So this particular Facebook conversation was going on, and Ken Ham posted an article that basically was a person writing that a new study suggested that atheists find meaning in fables or stories. And I found it to be a curious article because I thought this isn't really news. Whether someone is religious or non-religious, an atheist or a devout Christian or Muslim or whatever, we are hardwired, many of us would agree, our brains are hardwired to tell stories and to appreciate stories, whether they're religious parables or folk tales or any other stories like watching The Walking Dead on AMC or whatever. So I didn't really find this to be a very insightful article. But what became very interesting to me were some of the comments that were being posted on the Facebook page. And basically, I made this point in one of my posts that what I just said to you, everybody tells stories and everyone appreciates stories. Well, then another person posted and said they interpreted, another person posted, and they were using the pronoun they. And they were saying, well, they don't, and they had this laundry list of things. And what became very curious on this social media feed on Facebook was you couldn't locate who the they was. Was they the atheists? Because it tends to be very polarized on these Facebook debates about religion. So was the they the atheists, or they the fundamentalists, the folks who were supporting Answers in Genesis? And as this conversation went on, I was confused, others were confused, and I thought it was an interesting metaphor for this idea that religion often incites a great amount of controversy, and often we don't even know who the players are. We don't even know maybe what our argument is, or we get so wrapped up in the emotion of it all that we lose track of some of the nuances that in a social science class like Anthro 107, we try to maintain. And so that's something different you'll notice if you read popular accounts of religion. Often it's a lot of controversy, and people get involved in these very harsh debates because they personalize this stuff and take it so incredibly personally. The last area I would talk about today is the idea of critical possibility. And I think one of the things you should do in this class this quarter, if possible, again, I mentioned earlier that I don't assume to know what your religious traditions or spiritual views or lack of views are, but regardless of what they are, try to treat others in this class with respect. Try to have an open mind about things, even if you believe very firmly as an atheist in your view of the world, or you believe very firmly as a fundamentalist Christian in your views of the world. Try to open yourself up to critical possibility. Engage with others, interface with new ideas in the world, look to new religious and spiritual traditions, and try to challenge yourself all the while. I think if you take this last C here of critical possibility to heart, the class maybe will be more meaningful, not just in this academic sense that you need to get a grasp on to maybe get a decent grade in the class, but in a more personal sense, a lifelong sense as you move through life and interface with other ideas and other people and other cultures out there who very clearly and likely will have belief systems, religious views, and spiritual views very different from your own. So if you take these 4 C's to heart in this class, Anthro 107 this quarter, I think it might give you a good opportunity to think about your own religion, your lack of religion, your own spiritual views or lack of spiritual views in some new and insightful ways. So good luck in this class, and as you move into week 1, maybe use some of these ideas as an opportunity to frame your discussion posts in some interesting and critical senses.